Last year we got The Substance, this year we got Grafted. Body horror's back, baby. In the movie, you have a bright but socially awkward young girl named Wei who also has a facial disfigurement that runs in her family. Her father had it as well. So it was his life work and now it's hers to figure out how to rapidly age the skin grafting process, solve her own problems of self-confidence and help society. Problem is, once she figures out this process and she gets good at it, she uses it for terrifying purposes. As you can tell from the thumbnail, this is old school, mean-spirited, ill-intended body horror. Much like The Substance, it is very visceral, but that movie's more satirical. This movie is meant to make your skin crawl. And I think it's effective at points. Because for the record, not a lot of things get under my skin, but one thing that always has made my skin crawl, I don't really know why, is surgical equipment on bodies, like scalpels, needles across skin, facelift type of things. If you weren't a fan of nip tuck and any of that sounds like it's something that would make you kind of feel icky, avoid this one, take my word for it. And it's kind of a shame though, this movie will get compared to The Substance because every body horror movie going forward probably will. That movie was so creative, it had so much to say, it set the bar so high. And this movie shares similarities with it, but it is wildly different because of that tone. The Substance felt more satirical. This movie just feels like it's a movie that's supposed to make you feel icky inside, and it succeeds. So basically, you have this young girl named Wei, and she has the facial disfigurement, and she stands out like a sore thumb. You know, she's kind of quirky and an outcast, and the mean girls in the school pick on her because of this. So everybody likes a good comeback story. I can always root for a bully to be taken down. And she figures out this process of skin grafting and how to get good at it so it can rapidly work. And she's going to use that on other girls' faces, her own face. I'll let your imagination fill in the blanks with how she does that. But it's highly effective at certain points. I don't think it's as effective as it could be because of the practical effects and how it's utilized. But there are 2 or 3 scenes in this movie that definitely made my skin crawl, and I thought they were really effective. I will say though, this movie for the most part really goes for the trope of a bunch of mean girls making fun of this quirky girl. And I don't think it was really earned because she is weird. She is kind of kooky at points, but I don't think she's so weird she would stand out and get bullied. It feels like a plot convenience that wasn't really written and cooked fully. She does look kind of funny because she has a facial disfigurement, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. I don't think it would really stand out to be bullied. I know everyone has their own limits for that, but it's nothing more weird than you'd see at the local Walmart. So the fact we're supposed to buy into this, I feel like that was a little bit half cooked. But this is a movie when it gets into its science angle that involves a lot of experimentation, like dissections, scalpels, facelift type of things. So if that's not your forte, avoid this one, as I already said. I thought the first half hour of this movie was really interesting as a setup and where they were going to go when it comes to her figuring out this grafting process, how she was going to use it, her relationships with her sister and her family, just the past of what the purpose of this was. It's something you can really get behind, trying to better society by figuring out this process, solve her own issues, and then it kind of morphs into something a little bit more weird, but it will definitely draw comparisons to The Substance because it's filmed with very vibrant colors, very visceral imagery, the way they contrast pictures. That's why I think it will get compared because there's a lot of zooms on like raw seafood and meat and cutting of objects, and then it will scan over to somebody's lips, like putting on lip gloss or something. So it kind of works like a cheat code because the way it makes your brain merge these things is watching something get dissected, then seeing a person's lips. And the way your brain works, it just merges the two together and you feel really icky when you're watching it. And it makes you kind of worry that you're going to see something you don't want to. It's surprising how many things in this film make you feel uncomfortable. Even watching people eat very close up, again, like The Substance when you're watching Dennis Quaid's character eat, because for the most part, I was pretty uncomfortable watching this just based on the expectations of what I might see. That's probably more effective than anything you do actually see. But a huge problem I feel like this movie is going to run into for a lot of people is it requires a massive suspension of disbelief. Because where this movie ends up going when it comes to people's faces, there are huge plot holes that need to be overlooked. I mean, people, even if you had somebody else's face, would not be the same height, they would not have the same voice, they would not have the same mannerisms, they wouldn't have the same access to a person's life, and it requires you to overlook all of that for the commentary it's going for. So on the surface, I can respect what it's trying to do and what it's trying to say, but in execution, the practical effects of it and the way they implement it, it requires you to really overlook a lot, and it doesn't really elicit the response I believe it could if it was executed better with a better director. I couldn't tell when I was watching this if people were acting the way they were because they were written to be that way or if it was just the actors that were chosen, but some of the mannerisms of these characters are so impossible to mistake for like a serial killer. You're so pretty. You are just so gorgeous. To the point I would be looking at this person in real life saying, yeah, you're trying to wear my face. What are you doing? And there's one thing in particular related to our main character and what she ends up doing in the process and her mannerisms. It got to the point I was kind of looking around like, is nobody gonna acknowledge what's going on? Are we not gonna point out the elephant in the room? Like, you guys not notice that? Because something starts to happen with the procedure and things start to go wrong and things are just very obvious to notice and nobody's pointing them out. And I just started thinking I was crazy. Like, is nobody going to point that out and say anything? We're not going to acknowledge that that's the thing and we're just ignoring it. So as I said, massive suspension of disbelief required for some of these thrills and some of these scares and some of this visceral imagery, because there is some wild shit in this film that is just kind of stupid at a certain point because they don't acknowledge it's there and it's not executed the best. It's also kind of a shame because the first half starts off very interesting, and I would say the second half of this film just turns into a straight up schlocky 80s B horror film, which is kind of disappointing because it had a lot to go for it in the first half and it felt very derivative in the second half. So overall, I will say I've definitely seen better and worse. This movie's just kind of there when it comes to body horror, but it does definitely have a handful of effective moments if this is your brand, if you don't like scalpels. Has a little bit of shady acting, shady direction. I think a lot of elements of this movie could have been a lot better to make it more memorable. But I would still recommend this movie if you have nothing else to do and this is your brand of horror. So if you guys heard of or seen Grafted, comment down below or let me know what your favorite body horror movie is you feel like is underrated. If you haven't subscribed, join me down below. I love talking movies with you, but I will see you in the next video. Peace.